So welcome to the 2025 Art Colloquium. The senior art students who will be presenting today and next Thursday have taken art classes every year at King, and this year studied art at the highest level. This is their capstone project. All of you have taken at least one art elective, so you know the course always ends in an open project. This is when you create an original artwork to which you have a personal connection with. You make sure that you are experienced through research and practice, and you experiment with novel techniques and concepts. The senior year in advanced and AP art is entirely an open year, during which students choose a theme that they explore through art making. It's a challenging year. Mistakes are made and celebrated. It is never boring. Throughout the year, students' themes often evolve and their work becomes more nuanced and sophisticated. We emphasize quality over quantity, so a lot of work and revision goes into every piece. The art can be found outside in the lobby and around the mezzanine in the upper school. Now, here are the seniors to share their journey with you.
Hi, my name is Claire Pritchard, and I'm a senior here at King. I'm going to be presenting my EP Art Colloquium today. My themes were inspired by my experience with mental health and how I grew from it. Growing up, I struggled pretty badly with anxiety and OCD. There were many times during these experiences where I wanted to be healed immediately, where I craved the feeling of being normal. Although these moments were tough, I learned a lot about the process of healing and growth. With the help and love of support ones, I've gained an enormous amount of confidence and courage. I even have the privilege of following one of my childhood dreams, and that is working in the medical field. Next year, I will be attending Providence College as a nursing major, and with my degree, I hope to work in either labor and delivery or some other field within that section of healthcare. At King, I also discovered my love for ceramics. It was super important for me to include that medium into my work, as it is the reason I took AP in the first place. So the questions that I have explored this year are, how can I show inner healing and growth using my anatomy as a symbol, and how can I capture the support from loved ones using different mediums? Before I show my work, I want to introduce you to an artist whose art is very similar to mine. This is Annette Messenger. She does not refer to herself as a feminist, but her work provides the idea that through routines and rituals, women are able to be their true individual selves in a male-dominated world. She is a part of the outsider art movement, a movement in which self-taught artists operate outside of the mainstream art world. This also represents me as an artist. I am self-influenced, and I use my own imagination to create abstract visuals of challenges I have faced using my body. I utilized my scrapbook a lot this year. I found it influential to draw out ideas using various colors and mediums before creating a finalized piece. This way, I was able to explore all possibilities before choosing one final design. For my first project, I had the idea of creating a heart sculpture. Clay has been a huge part of my art journey here at King, and I wanted to include this medium within my art. Unfortunately, the glue I hoped would be strong enough to hold the pieces together wasn't. Some vases broke fully and others cracked partially. I had to brainstorm ways to make this piece viable. I call this piece Undeveloped Heart. The blue vases represent blood that lacks oxygen, signifying my moments of struggle, while the red vases represent blood filled with oxygen, signifying the more positive and optimistic moments within my experience. I didn't want to refer to it as a broken heart because I felt as though that did not resonate with my theme. So I said I wanted to portray a heart in the middle stage, a place where heavy healing is noticeable and also where panic is found. This piece is known as Guts. I was inspired by a piece I created at a birthday party I had nearly 10 years ago. We all participated in splatter painting a large canvas. Sadly, I destroyed the original piece during a moment of stress. The plain paint splats represent my original piece, where the glitter ones are meant to show growth or a new version of myself. I used Guts as my organ of choice, and I built them using Model Magic clay. I made them a very light shade of pink to symbolize the process of regaining strength and power over your body. On the outside rims, I used different color strings to represent loved ones that have helped me through this process. Pink is for my little sister Mari, red for my mom, blue for my dad, purple for my extended family and friends, and white for my faith. They wrap around the entire canvas, almost like they are hugging it, aka hugging me. I call this piece interlinked. For this one, I started out in the ceramics room. I made 6 vases in total on the wheel, and I placed one vase on top of another vase to create an hourglass-type shape. For the colors, the blue vase represents my dad's DNA, while the pink one represents my mom's. The center, purple one, is me. My parents played a huge role in bringing me to the place I am today. They will always be a part of my journey, so I wanted to show that through the thing that proves I will always have parts of them within me, my DNA. This piece is my body puzzle. I once again used the medium string as a symbol in my work. The string represents muscles that run through each part of my body, signifying unlimited strength. Glitter is also used to represent a new version of myself, the self that isn't afraid to try new things or even afraid to fail. For my final piece, I was inspired by my recent visit to the MoMA. I was intrigued by certain layouts. I really liked how one piece of art could have multiple different parts to it. I also wanted to incorporate my passion towards our reproductive system, so I decided to connect the 9 months of pregnancy with fruit. As many of you may heard before, the size of a baby in utero can be compared to different fruits. I also wanted to connect this piece to my faith, so I decided to make 9 fused stained glass pieces that would be set up in a 3x3 pattern. Unfortunately, the process of fusing glass was unsuccessful. I still wanted to use this idea in my presentation, though. So I decided to use a piece that I did last year in Mr. Hughes's ceramic class. I made a 10-piece plate bowl fruit set. This took a whole semester to make. Although it isn't directly connected to the 9 months of pregnancy, fruit is commonly used to represent part of the female anatomy. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and feel free to check out my art in real life in the PAC lobby and on the mez.
Hi, I'm Lila Perkins, and this is my art colloquium. One of my favorite projects last year in Advanced Art 2 was when Mr. Hughes tasked us with an architectural drawing of Somewhere at King. More importantly, this project allowed me to experiment with using soft pastels. I have always loved fashion, more specifically denim, so going into this year, I knew I wanted to try to find a way to incorporate my love for fashion and my personal style into my artwork. Last year, for my open project, Mr. Hughes helped me to create a denim model of my house, using denim as a symbol for comfort and home. Although I did not love how it turned out due to my personal mechanical errors, I still loved the idea of incorporating denim into my work this year. That's when I realized that while denim is its own material, there are so many things I could do with the subject as a whole without using the actual medium to express my love for denim and the indigo blue that is the basis of all of our favorite pair of jeans. That leads to my starting theme question, which is, how can I use art to showcase my love for denim and the color blue? Wanting to devote my artwork to the color blue, who else would my inspiration be other than Yves Klein? On a quest to, quote, liberate color from a prison that is the line, Klein used the color blue to capture the boundlessness of space and dreams. Klein connected with the color so much so, he created International Klein Blue, a shade of ultramarine which he invented and trademarked. For my first piece, I decided I was going to circle back to last year as well by using pastels. After experimenting with both oil and soft pastels, I realized that soft pastels created the best scratchy light denim texture. I then took photos of my favorite pair of dark wash Levi's low loose jeans, arranging them in a variety of ways, and picked one to begin drawing. Although I initially thought I was going to draw the stitching on the denim, I realized that the blue denim was much stronger on its own, with nothing to interrupt the different shadows and varying shades throughout the piece. I ended up really loving how this piece turned out, and it continued to inspire me for the remainder of the year. Because I enjoyed the process of the first piece and working with pastels so much, I decided I wanted to choose another piece of denim to create a portrait of for my second piece. Here are some trial photographs I took of some of my other favorite pieces of denim. I ended up going with the one in the bottom left corner. I really love how this piece turned out. However, the most difficult part was creating the metal studs, but I think they ended up looking great in the end. Circling back to my first drawing, I decided that rather than embroidering straight onto the pastels and risking damaging the paper, we would create a copy of the drawing on canvas paper and stitch onto that. Aside from the fact that it was my first time using a sewing machine, the embroidery was also very difficult to see, even though I used a hot pink so it would pop against the blue and add my own touch. Both of these drawings were extremely time-consuming and took up almost half my year doing all the tedious detailing of the denim and getting all the correct folds and shadows. However, I'm very happy with how they turned out in the end. Although we didn't love the front, we ended up flipping the paper over, revealing that the loose and ripped apart back uncovered a whole new meaning. While our outside may look put together all the time, our inside, which we keep to ourselves, tells a completely different narrative. For the second drawing, I created the same inside-out portrait with the pink embroidery. Making this connection with the back of the jeans led me to my next question, circling my focus back to my personal style as a whole. How is my personal style a symbol for how my experiences have shaped what I show to the outside world versus what I keep to myself? For my first inspiration, I chose Alexander McQueen. I was drawn to McQueen's work because, as you can see in the photos, he was majorly successful in his originality and was able to make a statement in the world of fashion by creating something that no one had really seen before. This quote about fashion by Alexander McQueen, quote, "It's almost like putting armor on a woman. It's a very psychological way of dressing," really connected with me because I think many, in this case women, can see clothing as armor, making us appear one way, such as strong and put together on the outside. You will see this theme grow throughout the rest of my project. After creating 2 large-scale pastel drawings, I wanted to experiment with a new medium. For this project, rather than using my art to create a connection with denim, I decided to find a way to connect denim to me. I've always loved collaging, so for this piece, I decided to use personal photos from my life, obviously blue, and collage them with denim scraps. Then, for the other blocks, I used denim on its own and yarns of different shades of indigo to represent the denim unraveled, similar to the back of the jeans. By collaging denim with moments captured from my own life, I was able to tie together the message of how my personal experiences has shaped what I show to the outside world. These 3 are the ones I enjoyed making the most and I think do the most productive job of carrying along my story. This piece in the center of my grid is one of the blocks flipped inside out with the inside filled with string. I decided to flip the block to symbolize the same theme as how we differently appear on the outside versus how we differently appear on the inside versus the outside. Next year, I will be continuing my academic and artistic journey at the University of Miami, where I will be majoring in creative advertising in the School of Communication. Thank you, and next time you're picking out an outfit, consider wearing jeans.
Hi, I'm Olivia Rodriguez, and this is my colloquium presentation. To give a little background on why I chose my theme this year, it really started last year in AP Art. AP Art was very different. For the first time, I had the freedom to create the art that I felt connected to. During the whole year, I created art based on the theme of how through art can people see the damages of beauty standards and social norms on our society. Here's one of my pieces in my AP Art portfolio. I really enjoyed making all my pieces because most of them were combinations of friends, faculty, and many more people's life experiences, and how they were impacted by these standards in our society. What's shown on the screen is a closer look at the pieces. When creating this piece, I gathered words that people had been called that had a true impact on them mentally and physically. However, this year, I wanted to make art that was more personal to me because I felt like there's a lot more to my identity that society doesn't fully see than just my appearance. And that led me to my theme of how can I highlight meaningful memories from my life that reflect different aspects of my identity and family. One big inspiration for me was Lisa Liu. an artist known for recreating everyday spaces using domestic materials like beads and thread. I loved how she turned ordinary environments into extraordinary ones, bringing specific memories to life with texture and color. That energy really shaped my first piece, Abuela's Fridge. At first, I had no idea all my work would be based on specific moments in my life, but this piece started the chain. When I thought of my abuela, her fridge instantly came to mind, covered in letter magnet tiles, old photos from the Dominican Republic, pictures of my mom growing up, and now of me and my cousins. It was always stocked with Coca-Cola and popsicles. It's more than just a fridge. It's a symbol of everything she sacrificed for us. She stopped school in second grade, can read but not write well, and doesn't speak English. Still, she raised generations with love, generosity, and strength. Knowing where she came from motivates me to keep pushing forward and honoring that legacy. Here are some closer looks at the details within my piece. As you can see, I used a lot of clay, thread, and felt. Last minute, I also decided to add food items that I would often see inside my abuela's fridge, but made them look very childlike and as if they were almost toys. The photo on the left are all the photos that were on her fridge during my childhood, and everything to the right is the beginning thought process on how I wanted to go about bringing this memory to life. And as you can see, there's a lot of experimenting and sketching involved. My second piece came after celebrating my abuela's birthday. At every birthday party, we sing happy birthday in English and then immediately sing it again in Portuguese. My dad's family immigrated from Portugal when he was 16, and while my abuelos only speak a little English, we've always found a way to connect. Even when I don't fully understand the words, I understand the feeling. That moment reminded me that language has never divided my family, but it's actually brought us closer together. So I captured that unique mix of cultures and generations celebrated together. Here's a closer look at my favorite parts of the piece. Once again, I used a lot of thread, clay, paint, and dye to bring this memory to life. Then came a piece based on a very different memory, the Tooth Fairy. At home, the Tooth Fairy was sweet and magical. At Abuela's house, it was war. If you had a loose tooth, she'd hunt you down, and then she would first try and pull the tooth out with her fingers. If that didn't work, she'd pull out the cookie tin, not for cookies, but for sewing supplies. She'd tie a string around the tooth and pull. After the tooth came out, she would give you a couple dollars and send you on your way. It was terrifying, but unforgettable. Looking back, it's one of the most chaotic but special memories that shaped how I saw something as simple as losing a tooth. I turned that fear into art by repainting a cookie tin, creating childlike money with felt, and fake teeth with clay. Here's a closer look at the details of my piece. Finally, my last pieces focused on car ride DVDs, specifically Barbie movies. Most of my family lives in New York, so we'd spend hours in the car for birthdays and holidays. Me and my sister always picked the movies, and Barbie was the favorite. I would daydream, imagining myself inside those stories. This DVD piece is a reflection of those memories. I used felt, beads, and photos to give me and my sister extravagant dresses like Barbie. This was not just to capture the nostalgia of the memory, but also to show my love for fashion even at such a young age. Even as a kid, I was drawn to the textures, colors, and sparkles. I later made another DVD cover, this time based on the Nutcracker, which me and my siblings danced in every year. My mom went to school for ballet before an injury made her stop. Dance connected us, two artists in very different forms. Every Nutcracker season, I look up to the older girls and daydream of playing their roles someday. But it wasn't just the dance that captured me. It was the costumes, the tulle, the sparkle, and the detail. It was one of the first places I fell in love with fashion. With those memories in mind, I created this piece to imagine myself alone on stage stepping into the spotlight. I used felt, beads, and photos to reflect the magic of performance and the beauty of costume design. It's a tribute to my childhood dreams and the way fashion has always been a part of how I tell stories. Each of these pieces may seem small on their own, a fridge, a birthday song, a pulled tooth, a car ride, but together they tell a deeper story about who I am and where I come from. Art gave me a way to preserve these memories and celebrate the people who made me, me. I'll be continuing my education at the Fashion Institute of Technology, where I'll be majoring in fashion design. Thank you for your time and attention.
Hi everyone, I'm Elise Prather, and thank you for listening to my colloquium today. To start off my presentation, I wanted to talk about how my work has evolved throughout the year. My initial inspiration came from my Open project, which I completed at the end of my junior year in Advanced Art 2. Creating this piece from a childhood photo of me and my twin Maddie, I was inspired to keep the same theme going and to explore other themes about what twinhood entails. While painting this acrylic piece of us jumping in puddles, seemingly identical, it sparked the idea for my year-long theme. I had so much fun painting in my favorite way, a realistic landscape piece, while also capturing a meaningful moment and the ties of our lifelong relationship. So at the beginning of this year, I knew that I wanted my theme to revolve around being a twin and my life experiences, but at first I had no idea what that would look like. I started collecting memories, objects, and inspiration from other artists, as seen here in my sketchbook. In my brainstorming, I knew I wanted to venture outside my comfort zone, and that meant doing more than just simply painting a childhood photo of us. I wanted the meaning behind my pieces to be more subtle, maybe not noticed or understood immediately by the viewer. I especially wanted to be able to express aspects of my life as a twin that others may not realize, while also leaning away from solely traditional art. So my theme quickly became very personal, reflecting on our experiences, memories, and challenges. I also wanted to capture our relationship in my art in interesting new ways. I wanted to explore ideas about how having a built-in twin is usually the best thing in the world, but at times it can have downsides. In my life, I have seen how being an identical twin can sometimes impact my self-image of my individual identity and also affect how others perceive and see me. So my final question for my sustained investigation ultimately became, how can I represent my memories, experiences, and identity as a twin through my artwork? An artist who impacted and inspired my work directly are the Starn twins, who are twin photographers who focus on themes of codependence and connection. Their ideas helped to inspire my own theme, and some of their work, like this one displayed here, also directly inspired my artworks through their composition and through their focus on duality within nature. This is my first piece I completed this year, which is titled Perception. The idea for this piece originated from the idea that often I notice individuals glancing down at my neck to see if I am wearing a certain necklace to be able to tell us apart. This quick but subtle interaction may go unnoticed by others, but I recognize its meaning every day, that at first glance, my identity is not always completely known. From this interesting idea, I wanted to create a symbol out of my neck that sometimes people can identify me from that part of my body and not necessarily from my face. Throughout this process, I also got to experiment a lot with the glitch effect seen on the painting, playing around with colored layered vinyls on top of a printed copy to create my final diptych to add duality. For my second piece, I wanted to return to a style that I loved, choosing to do an extensive landscape. But I knew that I wanted it to be more meaningful than just a simple painting and wanted to connect it directly to my theme. So I decided to capture a glimpse of my childhood memories by painting a fall day in my front yard. While my ideas evolved as I began to paint, I realized that the portrait I was painting was my perspective on life and of a childhood memory, but that Maddie's perspectives are sometimes entirely different from mine, highlighting our striking differences. So I wanted to capture exactly that, her perspective, from her point of view in the second half. I had my sister take her own photograph of the yard, creating a comparison of my painted perspective with her separate outlook. For my third and final piece, I noticed that I could complete all three traditional styles of painting within my portfolio: a portrait, a landscape, and lastly, a still life. For my still life, I chose to use fruit assembled and staged in my home, for I wanted to capture a simple, fleeting moment like our daily breakfasts together. I wanted to paint this specifically because I realized that we are finally separating next year for college, and to me, this painting represents our tiny moments together that I have taken for granted over the years. The dualities between the fruit and the broken-up composition also contribute to my vision of a nostalgic moment in time with my twin. For the composition specifically, I was uniquely inspired by a piece by Claude Monet I saw in the Musée d'Orsay. I knew immediately that I wanted to do something like it with a staggered layout. After countless stages and photo shoots of fruit in different compositions, I finalized the layout, did an underpainting, and spent many extensive hours perfecting my biggest project yet. I am very proud of how I stepped outside of my comfort zone once more with this large piece, and I even used real-life fruits to paint from, magnifying the details and realistic style of the painting. Although my AP art experience has come to an end, I'm excited to be continuing my artistic and academic journey in college when I attend Wake Forest University next year. Thank you all for listening to my presentation.
everyone, I'm Morgan Powell. Thank you for coming to my senior art colloquium. I have always loved photography, and everywhere I go, I take pictures, focusing on small details that others might not have noticed. My photos feature architecture, unique shadows, and reveal my personal aesthetic. My art focus at King began in the art history classroom, as I loved studying modern art, specifically the focus on experimentation and the shift away from traditional techniques. Having the opportunity to visit museums in the city excited me, and this passion led me to the advanced art program. Although this is not the usual path an art student at King takes, I am grateful for the unique opportunity to have grown as an artist. In art history, we studied surrealist photographer Henri Cartier-Bresson. I connected with his work immediately and was fascinated by what he called the decisive moment. This is when an ordinary moment is captured to satisfy the eye while communicating a deeper meaning behind the split second that it was captured. This is an intuitive skill that many photographers have, and I discovered this feeling when taking a closer look at my photography. For example, the decisive moment on the left was when the gondola came into the frame, adding a small detail that draws the viewer to notice the upward movement of the mountain. On the right, I captured a photo of the palm trees, but the blurry person walking away brings your eye to the pavement with a pedestrian warning matching the person's movement. Focusing on details like these led me to my sustained investigations for this year. How do I examine the moment I captured, and how do I explain that poetic moment? Last year, in Advanced Art 3, I focused on my photography from Big Sky, Montana. I thought the serene blue and white backdrop of the mountains and sky would inspire me to experiment with combining photography with painting and collage. I would first deconstruct the photos to help myself notice new things, such as shadows, recurring patterns, and angles. I used watercolor to emphasize the trees and the upward movement of the chairlifts. The rest of the collage highlights how the scheme intuitively worked together in my mind. In this series, I took risks, incorporating a new technique through Photoshop, introducing overlays and bold color with text. The texture and contrasting colors of the original photograph inspired me to experiment with bolder statements. Henri Matisse has also always influenced me. His bold use of color and the belief that beauty can be found in everyday life inspired my art. Much of his work was inspired by his time near the ocean in France, and I also enjoy the beach's landscape and how the light and shadows show up at different times of the day. I started examining color and movement with a simple collage, and although the photo is simple, the complexity of light and shadows made me want to explore it more deeply. Focusing on colors, specifically the bright orange featured on the umbrella, led me to an experimentation with printmaking. I wanted the viewer to understand that I took the picture because of the umbrella in the corner. I taught myself how to use linoleum block printmaking and experimented with inverting the umbrella. I loved the pattern it created, and on the right is just my placemat used under my artwork that I practiced on. I included some of this pattern in the corner of this piece to emphasize the circular shape a full umbrella makes. In addition, I taught myself a sewing technique by adding fringe to the umbrella. I then printed the pattern onto a fabric, and when I wasn't satisfied with that, I experimented with a more 3D technique, a bathing suit mock-up. With the confidence experimentation brought, I pushed myself to learn to trace and carefully cut fabric by hand. This, being my final series, shows that throughout the 3 years I took art classes, I was able to get out of my comfort zone and try new things while staying true to my identity through photography. I want to thank Ms. Lapola for the incredible support and for giving me this opportunity to express myself in such a unique way. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sydney Halbin, and this is my presentation. So, the beginning of my artistic journey at King started my freshman year with a self-portrait of myself. Sophomore year, I did a grisaille painting and was told to choose things that resonate with me. Both of these pieces made me start thinking towards what my theme would be in Art 3 and AP Art. My guiding question is, how can I capture and explore the nostalgia I am feeling about my childhood? I decided on this theme because high school is ending soon for me, and I chose it last year. I was going to turn 18 soon and technically no longer be a child, and I wanted to look back and reflect on my childhood through my art. This is me playing with my Lollaloopsy dolls as a kid, which were my favorite. I had a lot of them, and the idea to tie buttons into my artwork came from the dolls' distinctive feature, their button eyes. Your eyes are what you see the world through, and so the buttons are also representative of seeing the world through a child's eye. A child's perspective on life is very different from that of someone who is older, with different priorities and a happier, more carefree outlook, and so the artwork attempts to bring viewers back to see the world through the button eyes of children. So this is the piece that I was just talking about. This is the first one that I did last year. Each button represents a single memory and experience embedded in your mind. These memories shape you, forming a path through your life, symbolizing how your current self is shaped by past experiences, especially your childhood. This piece reminds us of carefree, joyful times that molded who we are and emphasize how impactful and long-lasting childhood is on our identity. The background is made up of handwritten words from childhood books which spark specific memories and reinforce the idea of the influence of early life experiences. Hair clips attached to button strings represent childhood identity, since hair is a metaphor for self-expression and how we saw ourselves when we were young. This piece is ultimately about joy and how even in adulthood, looking back can bring comfort as it helps shift your perspective to view the world as you once did. This is the second artwork that I created last year in Advanced Art 3 and was originally meant to be a reflection on how some people cannot look back on their childhood in a happy light. This is why the toys have writing on them and marks, and the chalkboard background has scribbles and eraser marks to show how some people don't want to remember things. But the piece developed naturally and evolved into something more personal and emotional. It turned into something more about both joy and loss of the times you cannot get back, but joy that they happened. Each island of toys serves as a safe space for reflection. These memory islands can help shift how we view our current lives. It reminds us of the lens we once viewed the world through, simple, joyful, and curious. Hopefully that perspective can bring more happiness into the present. These are just more details from it. And okay, this is the last thing that I worked on in Art 3. It's a self-portrait of my younger self, and although I didn't finish it, the unfinished aspect of it adds to the meaning of how, even though I am being nostalgic and looking back on my childhood, I am still growing and forming my own identity. I was gonna hang it up, but it's kind of scary, so I didn't. This year, my theme shifted a little to how I can preserve these characteristics and feelings that I found in myself from my childhood and then use them to gain a new perspective. This piece is about preserving the childlike parts of ourselves as we grow older. It uses oversized wooden toy blocks as the main medium, something familiar and nostalgic. These toy blocks all have different symbolic meanings on each side, but ultimately the way they are held together and have an inside represents how we all have that safe space inside of us that we can go back to and when life gets a little stressful. The text messages show a contradiction to the stuffed animals painted on the other side to show the monotoneness of now and how technology brings joy when it used to be the world around you doing this. And then these are two of the other stuffed animal paintings. And then there's also the traditional letter engraved into the wooden block the way they are in children's toy blocks. And then to further expand on the idea of having all these characteristics inside us, I created a nostalgic environment on the inside of one of the blocks to evoke feelings of safeness and comfort. This is my artist inspiration, Joseph Cornell. He was an American artist best known for his shadow boxes that combine found objects, vintage imagery, and personal nostalgia. He was a part of the Surrealist movement in modern art. The way he transformed ordinary items into imaginative and emotional works resonated with how I attempted to do the same this year by giving ordinary objects from people's childhoods more meaning. This next piece I did in art this year really drew inspiration from Cornell. I metaphorically captured butterflies that are my hair clips that represent different memories from my childhood. I captured these memories and kept them in a box to represent saving the happy feelings from your childhood. This is the last piece I created this year. This artwork was inspired by maps and the idea that we all come from different places. I originally wanted to combine two maps, but I chose a more abstract flowing design to reflect a dreamlike windy feeling. I included childhood toys to symbolize each person's journey, where we've been and where we're going. The cars serve as a reminder that our past and present are always connected, shaping the road ahead. Next year, I will be attending Boston University, where I can continue my artistic and academic career. And then this is my presentation outside, and then thank you. Now, we just want to give a special thanks to the whole art department, and especially Miss Lapola for helping all of us. And she's had a lot of us for many years, but especially this year getting through this entire presentation. We just want to say thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Can we just get another round of applause for the artists? They did amazing work. We're going to see 6 more artists next Thursday, so we'll meet back here then. In the meantime, you can definitely look at everyone's work outside in the lobby in the PAC, and then also around the mezzanine in the upper school. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody, to the second day of our Senior Art Colloquium. Today, we hear from more seniors, senior artists, and see their amazing work. But I'd like to take a moment to thank the King School Administration for supporting the arts, the parents who support the arts, the faculty for giving us the time to present today, and to the grade 11 students in the advanced art classes that worked alongside the seniors this year. We look forward to seeing their work next year. And lastly, I'd like to thank the art and design faculty, Mr. Hughes, Ms. Karina, and Ms. Lapola. Let's give them a round of applause. They've done so much to encourage, guide, and their kindness and support the students through their artistic process that we'll see. So now I'm just going to turn it over to the students who make this all possible.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia Costa and this is my art colloquium. I'm excited to share the work I created this year and how it connects to my memories and identity. In the past few years, I've focused on realistic flower paintings. They help me explore aspects of my life like growth, fragility, and beauty. This year, I wanted to take that idea further. I started using flowers more symbolically as a way to explore my childhood memories and how they've begun to fade. I was really inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe. I love how she paints flowers, sometimes abstracted, sometimes very close up, but always full of emotion. She captured her own inner world through her work, and that connection between nature and memory really spoke to me. So my guiding question became, how can I capture and portray my fading childhood memories? I chose flowers as a symbol because, like memories, they are delicate, beautiful, and temporary. Each flower in my work became a way of holding onto something, even if it's already starting to disappear. I began with cyanotypes using sunlight to print childhood photos. I painted over them with acrylic paint and pencil to bring parts of the image back, almost like reviving the memory. The layering helped me connect more emotionally to what I was seeing. Then I started printing on fabric. It felt more personal, like something you'd keep close or wear. That softness matched the feeling of memories better than the paper did. I taught myself embroidery and beading. Each stitch became a way to emphasize emotion, like giving the memory a second life. Its delicate work reminded me how fragile memories can be. The two fabric cyanotypes show different kinds of memories. The one with the stronger lines represents something vivid that stuck with me. The faded one shows how something meaningful can disappear. I used embroidery in both to represent memories trying to bloom again. Then I explored jelly plate printing with real flowers. The act of preserving them onto paper felt like physically preserving a memory, like putting a flower between book pages. Some prints turned out faint, others bold, just like how the memories come and go. I arranged some as diptychs, showing the balance between remembering and forgetting. The single print represents the rare memories that still feel fully alive. I designed and cut my own flower press to take this idea further. On the front, I painted a rose to represent my younger self. Inside, I placed fresh flowers between layers of newsprint and cardboard. After a few weeks, I opened the press. The flowers were faded and delicate, still beautiful but different. To me, they symbolize how we grieve what we forget, even as we try and hold on. I am currently working on a piece that started as an eco-dyeing with flowers to create soft imprints on fabric. Then I sealed it with encaustic medium, preserving the memory but also freezing it in time. I transferred a photo of me and my dog, but it came out faded. That felt right. I am painting flowers on top to show how our emotions reshape what we remember. In the fall, I'll be attending Southern Methodist University, where I will be majoring in the business school. I will continue to make art on the side, making my skills stronger and preserving that memory. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Caroline Resnick, and this is my Art Colloquium presentation. When I began exploring my theme, I wasn't sure how to express emotion effectively through my art. I started junior year working with charcoal because I loved its ability to emphasize facial expression and mood. My first portrait didn't turn out how I hoped, which pushed me to explore new styles and materials. I researched artists who explored emotion, and Pablo Picasso really stood out. He used color to express different emotional states, like sorrow in his blue period and joy in his rose period. His piece on the left shows warmth, but also quiet isolation, while the other reflects suffering and introspection. Picasso's use of abstraction and color inspired me to experiment with more form and feeling. This inspired me to revisit a soft pastel piece I did in my sophomore year, which depicted the side of the pack. This piece encouraged me to explore landscapes more intentionally, focusing on how color choices can create an emotional atmosphere within a scene. Originally, I planned to focus on mental health struggles, helping others feel less alone. I decided to go from depicting these emotions through facial expressions to showing them through color, specifically in landscapes. Over time, my theme evolved to how can color express simple and complex emotions through the lens of my travel experiences. In my first piece, I explored feelings of sorrow. I revisited a watercolor sketch from my sophomore year, using it as a foundation to reflect how I could deepen those emotions and make them more visually present. The light breaking through the clouds represents small moments of hope. I chose acrylic paint as my medium because it allowed me to capture the shifting weather and light. I worked on perspective with the bridge, softened the water, and used texture in the clouds to create stillness. To me, this piece reflects a quiet symbol of emotional resilience through light, when everything feels heavy, but there is still a sense of hope. My second piece started with a photo I took after 2 personal losses. I attempted a smaller painting of the landscape, but I was not impressed with the result. I wanted to try something new. Leaning into skin as a metaphor to symbolize emotional toughness, I used several layers of heavy gel medium to create a surface. I decided to paint the same landscape on top of it. The skin-like texture gave it an almost human quality, reflecting isolation but also quiet strength. During my junior year, a visiting artist introduced me to cyanotypes. Her approach inspired me to try it for the first time. I used cloth and random objects from the art room to begin experimenting. Continuing learning to print with this new medium, I used a photo from Paris where I felt surprisingly alone. The rich blue of the cyanotype captured that emotion. I added the coordinates to connect that feeling to a real place and moment in time. Next, I created a more joyful piece. On the left, you can see the original photograph that inspired the piece, and next to it are my first 2 attempts at printing. I was initially disappointed with the images did not show up clearly, but after several tries, I was finally able to produce 2 successful cyanotype prints on fabric. I printed the image onto 2 halves of fabric and layered encaustic medium over them to preserve the memory. This process gave the piece a sense of permanence. To finish it off, I stitched the 2 pieces of fabric together. This became symbolic, bringing together pieces of one happy moment. In my final piece, I focused on warmth and happiness. I painted a sunset from a personal photo. The underpainting was a bright orange to support the glow of the scene. I blended colors to recreate the sun's reflection in the water, softening near the horizon to show a sense of calm. Through this process, the painting became not just a reflection of the image, but a feeling, wrapping you in comfort. I want to thank Ms. Karina, Mr. Hughes, and Ms. Lapola for their support. I'll be attending the University of Miami next year to study in the School of Communications. Although I won't major in art, I know I will continue to make new projects, build my skills, and keep creating. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kyoja Duff, and welcome to my 2025 Senior Art Colloquium. There are a few pieces from my past where I explored different facets of my identity. Over the years, my work has centered on the evolution and acceptance of identity, my own and those reflected in broader communities. I chose this theme because history is often told through a narrow lens. We don't always hear about the joy, beauty, and excellence within marginalized communities. Through my art, I aim to express pride in my identity and reflect on the personal and cultural historical forces that shape how I see myself and how I move through the world. Using symbolism, mixed media, and thoughtful composition, I explore the intersection of race and self-perception, grounding each piece in both personal stories and collective narratives. For me, art is a space for reflection, connection, and redefinition, a way to challenge assumptions and expand conversation about identity. My first piece, June 10th, 1962, examines the racial beauty standards imposed on African Americans. I used newspapers collected with my family, each one carrying stories that push back against the distorted image of Black beauty. By highlighting both accomplishments and struggles, I hope to empower others to embrace their true identities and help society move towards a greater inclusivity. The newspapers hold both historical and deeply personal significance in this piece. My next piece, Revelations, was a work inspired by the African diaspora. The personal symbols that ground me at the center is the Ankh, a symbol of eternal life that has always held meaning in my family. I grew up seeing it in jewelry, fabrics, and artwork. It represents strength, roots, and continuity. In this piece, the Ankh represents Black history, connecting past and present as a symbol of resilience, hope, and identity. My next piece, Carnival, was a piece sparked by mask-making class in the African mask that filled my home growing up. I combined these influences to design a mask that honors the cultural traditions that shaped me. Its blank expression, stylized with features, both explore visibility and erasure, what's seen and what's hidden. I use metal leaf to emphasize its regality and the richness of my culture and heritage. My next piece is a self-portrait titled Golden. This self-portrait uses oil paints, which is historically reserved for royalty. To symbolize Black royalty and resilience, I felt this was a fitting medium. The Black streaks are open to interpretation, and they could be vines or long flowing hair, representing growth and protection. Either way, this piece is a celebration of authenticity and a reminder of the power in being unapologetically yourself. My artist inspiration this year was Alina Zapotnica. She was a Holocaust survivor who used unconventional materials to explore memory, trauma, and identity. Like her, I use art to reflect personal and collective histories while challenging traditional norms. Her bold, abstract forms inspire me to tell stories that need to be heard in my own way. My next piece, The Body, my next piece reflects how the female form, especially black and brown bodies, is often described through metaphors like chocolate, silk, toffee, or feathers. While these comparisons can be objectifying, they also carry undertones of beauty, warmth, and death. In this work, I reclaim those metaphors on my own terms, using them to explore intimate relationships between body and soul. It's a declaration of self-love and empowerment. My final piece, Tangled, represents the ever-changing nature of identity, how it's shaped, challenged, and redefined over time. It captures the inner dialogue I carry with me, a mix of clarity, confusion, peace, and power. Each color holds meaning. Blue equals peace and fluidity, like water. Green, growth and grounding, and purple, mortality and royalty. Fragility, quiet, dignity. Together, they form a visual story of becoming, of learning and embracing all parts of myself. Next year, I'm excited to continue researching art history at the Connecticut College, as well as studying architecture. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Doni Middleton, and this is my art colloquium. This piece, created during my sophomore year, is a diptych of a butterfly, split perfectly across two canvases. Each half mirrors the other, with bright hues standing out against a gray, moody background. At the time, I was exploring how light and positivity can emerge from darkness and negative spaces. The butterfly became a symbol of that transformation, growth breaking through the darkness. Looking back now, I see how this early piece connects to my current work, especially in the way it reflects contrast, division, and the search for understanding. As I moved forward in art, I focused on the theme, can I convey the feeling of discomfort while being exposed to opposing opinions? I chose this theme because I realized I had never expressed how these moments with my family affected me emotionally, and I believed art could be the most honest way for me to begin that conversation. It became clear to me that the discomfort, confusion, and reflection that come from these moments could create some interesting artwork. When I started my first piece, my theme was different, but I already had made the ball, so I had to figure out how to change it. I created the ball with plaster cloth and acrylic paint. I started by molding the shape over a beach ball and then cutting it in half. I added joint compound to make the mold stronger. I then had to shape the joint compound to create a smooth surface to paint over. To begin unpacking my current theme, I later painted this eye to represent how my extended family does not often see eye to eye. The checkerboard pattern represents how we have two opposing opinions, and how the opinions are always trying to one-up the other. This piece was my first attempt to make something personal into something visual, and it laid the groundwork for everything that followed. The next piece I made is made up of multiple laser plexiglass silhouettes of myself. To do this, I edited my silhouette and worked in the innovation lab to bring the digital file to life. We then created a wooden frame, which I painted white, to hold the piece together. Through this piece, I wanted to represent how over time I've processed all of these different opinions to form my own perspective. For the following pieces coming up, I found inspiration from the German artist Eva Collin. She uses layers of different colors, shapes, lines, and small writing, as well as distorted figures. Her influence helped me dive deeper into the complexity of my theme. One of the first pieces inspired by her is this encaustic painting on plywood. By using pigmented melted wax, I built up thick, textured layers. The broken wood represents how my family's views do not align. The layers represent how most of these conversations overlap, blur, and clash. The transparency of the wax shows how certain voices can dominate each other, while others can be lost or ignored. In the following work, I took the idea of overlapping further. I took wood and used a Sharpie to write a bunch of words and themes I hear, like politics, college, money, vaccines, and so on. I then coated the wood with gesso, partially concealing the words. I then wove the wood pieces for a tangled surface. The gesso farther represents the idea of how these conversations become a blur. The weaving shows how our voices get intertwined and how even though we are talking about the same things, they come with different perspectives. My final piece is made from aluminum wire. I bent and shaped the wire to form these distorted faces to indicate how these conversations can feel uncomfortable or awkward while sitting in between them. The open structure of the wire reflects the vulnerability that I feel when I speak my opinion in these tense environments. For my future, I plan to go to Indiana University, where I will be majoring in pre-business. Although I'm not studying art, I will definitely keep it as a hobby in my life. Thank you all for listening.
Hi, my name is Ava Angelov, and this is my 2025 AP Art Colloquium. My art journey started my freshman year in photography 1 and 2 with Mr. Shoemaker. I fell in love with photography and returned the next year as a TA for Mr. Hughes. The images shown here were taken at one of my first basketball games I ever photographed. Sports has always been a big part of my life, so I naturally gravitated towards sports photography. My biggest inspiration the last couple of years has definitely been Andrew D. Bernstein, one of only 4 photographers in the NBA Hall of Fame. He's photographed profound athletes like Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, Larry Bird, and LeBron James. The angles and shutter speeds in his work influenced how I approached taking my own. With that background, going into Advanced Art 3 my junior year, I immediately knew I wanted to focus on sports photography. I'm fairly involved in the school's athletics and wanted to give back to my school community. That led to my guiding question, how can motion and emotion be expressed? This is my first completed piece combining photography and mixed media. It started during the day of unplugging last year when I couldn't use a computer to do work, so I printed one of my basketball images and colored over it with Crayola markers. That early version is shown on the left. From there, I tested different papers and markers, eventually choosing acrylic markers and canvas paper. I then printed the final image on 25-inch by 20-inch canvas paper. The added color lines highlight the motion, pulling the viewer's eye towards the main subject. The high shutter speed captures the intensity and concentration of the moment to make the shot. My first series this year involved printing my photos on acetate. I isolated the subject in Photoshop and turned it black and white so I can manipulate the colors. Then I experimented with different color combinations until one felt right for each image. The way the colored acetates are layered creates a sense of movement, almost like you're shifting with the players. When displayed with mini magnets separating each layer, the depth and color shifts become more dramatic, especially in sunlight. Next, I created a series of trading cards. I chose to focus on basketball and followed YouTube tutorials to design a template in Photoshop. Once I got the hang of it, I dropped the photos in and added stats on the back to fill space, just like a real baseball card. It was the most time-consuming series, but it was also the most fun. Each card highlights a player's achievement this season and ties back to my theme of emotion. My final series was black and white close-ups. I had leftover game photos and decided to isolate the players by converting them to black and white, a similar process to my acetate series. Even without added color, the players' expression and body language felt really powerful. Printing them large on 11 by 17 inches lets you see details that usually go unnoticed. Since we usually never watch a game from this close, it gives a more in-depth view of the action. Even though art hasn't been a part of my life for very long, I'm very grateful for the opportunities photography has brought me. Although I'm undecided in my major at the University of Tampa, I'm interested in studying exercise science. For college, I'll definitely try to keep myself revolved around art by taking classes. Thank you for listening.
Hello, everyone. My name is Durbert Robinson, and this is my art colloquium. This is the last piece I made during my junior year. Though it may look insignificant, it was incredibly freeing taking objects from hobbies and interests I don't normally show others and putting them on display. That first little bit of vulnerability I showed in this piece led me to form my theme for this year. My guiding question was, how can the creative process allow me to be compassionate towards my emotional unrest? My artistic inspiration stems from Monet. In particular, I am inspired by his willingness to ignore the status quo. Monet's style of Impressionism was born from his unique perspective of the world. His technique and outlook, initially seen as foolish by his contemporaries, are now regarded as revolutionary. At the beginning of the year, I was inspired by his distinctive use of color and texture. As time went on, I began to admire his way of thinking about art, and I started to explore how I could break the rules I held myself to. My first piece was inspired by a photo my friend took of me for their AP art class. After I moved to this school and they became busier with college responsibilities, we began to drift apart. That era has passed. I've grown since then, and this piece is a reflection of that chapter of my life. For me, the covered figure and neo-impressionist style invoke a whimsical and dreamy feeling of the past, filled with vivid emotion, yet still feeling distant. For my next piece, I wanted to expand on the idea of a past and present self. I also wanted to make the work more contemporary and conceptual. I challenged myself to create something beyond just a pretty picture. It began with oil pastel, but I struggled to let the meaning shine through using traditional mediums, so I tried a new approach. I edited a photo of my unfinished piece in Photoshop, removed color from certain areas, then printed it onto vellum sheets. I wove the two versions together. I added gauze and string, symbolizing healing. For me, this work represents two separate realities, two versions of self that exist at once, a feeling of being disconnected from myself. In this next piece, I wanted to address my struggles with body image and self-confidence. I began by taking some of my figure drawings and practicing ways to transfer them into prints. On the right, I drew directly onto the paper. On the left, I drew onto the plate and transferred it. For the larger print, I layered a thin wash of paint over the drawing. This series is a depiction of the circle of self-hate I found myself in throughout most of my teen years. It starts with comparing myself to a heteronormative beauty standard, leading to criticism and self-doubt, and ultimately looping back to seeking validation from others. For the next piece, I revisited a project I began in sophomore year. Back then, I created a dull version of myself for my open project. I wasn't happy with the final result, so I shoved it in my closet, where it stared at me every morning when I reached for a sweater. This year, I decided to finish it, and thought it would be the perfect piece to reform around my essential question. The new version reflects how I present myself to the world through the way I choose to dress and accessorize. It was inspired by a moment on spring break this year where a stranger made homophobic remarks about my pink backpack. That moment made me more determined to use my art to express myself without worry or restraint. This piece is still a work in progress. Eventually, I hope to include more outfits and accessories representing how I show up at school, at home, or around my friends. For now, it's a little version of me, and I get joy from making cute little clothes that reflect different versions of myself. Next year, I will be continuing my academic journey at New York University. Art has always been a passion of mine, and I don't intend to stop my study of it anytime soon. Thank you for listening to my colloquium. Have a great rest of your day. On behalf of my entire AP Art class, I'm honored to extend a thank you to our teachers. I want to give a big thank you to Ms. Karina, Mr. Hughes, Ms. LaPola, Mr. Shoemaker, Ms. Darton, and Mr. Fish for all the help that they've given to my classmates and I throughout this year.
Can we just get another round of applause for all the artists? They did amazing work. Amazing job. If you want to see more of their work or this work in person, they're out in the lobby of the PAC or around the upper school mezzanine gallery space. If something inspired you and you want to take some art courses, you can always talk to somebody in the art department. We'd be happy to look at what more you can do in that space.